This is the May 10th, 2023 regular meeting of the Bronxville Planning Board. We have two principal items on the agenda for tonight, but before we get to those, why don't we talk about and hopefully approve the minutes from the April meeting? And hopefully all of the board members have had a chance to take a look at those, and unless there are any comments or questions, do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved. Or second.
Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman, motion. Mr. Hayden, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion, minutes approved. Thank you. Okay, the first item we will consider tonight is the site plan application for the hospital, 55 Palmer Road. Do we have someone on behalf of the applicant who would like to speak to this application?
We do. Good evening. I'm Tim Hughes. I'm the Vice President for Operations at New York Presbyterian Westchester Hospital, formerly Lawrence. Thank you for allowing us to present the proposed improvement plan. I'm accompanied this evening by my colleagues, Lori Walsh, the Chief Nurse, James Keogh, Corporate Director of Facilities, and our architects, Susan Romano and Jack Archer from E4H. This application is related to an application filed with the village to build a new labor and delivery unit on the fourth floor of the hospital in currently vacant space in the south tower. The building department requested that the hospital file a separate application for the proposed exterior duct work and HVAC rooftop work. The current labor and delivery unit is located on the fourth floor in the west tower, which was constructed in the mid-1950s. And despite a number of refreshes over the years, it is not suitable for a modern obstetrical service. The new labor and delivery unit would modernize the capabilities of the obstetrical services, allowing for the most current and state-of-the-art equipment and facilities in order to provide the safest possible facility for women and babies, as well as improve the aesthetics, comfort, and meeting the birthing experience expected by the communities that we serve. The new unit will include all private triage and recovery rooms, as well as replace the six new labor and delivery rooms, replacing the current 6 labor rooms, and enhancing infection prevention and the patient experience. Also included in the unit are 2 new modern C-section operating rooms. Those are also replacements for the current smaller, cramped rooms located on the 4 West unit. The new unit provides for adequate work and support space for our obstetricians, anesthesiologists, nurses, nurse practitioners, and surgical technicians in order to promote a safe environment. When completed, the project will create a safer, more modern environment, enhance the patient, family, and practitioner experience, provide appropriate privacy, and overall enhance the birthing experience for our community. If there are any questions, I can take them. If not, I'll invite our architect to come up and review the exterior work.
Everyone okay with that? Okay, yes, thank you very much.
John?
I'm not sure if you're going to go with yours or with the information. Good evening, members of the board. I'm coming representing E4H Architects. Basically, the reason we are here is because we are running some of the dot work for the best solution we find to bring these new labor and delivery units, specifically the C-section rooms, up to the codes that we have now and the amount of exchange that we require for this kind of spaces. So the best solution was to have a dedicated RTU unit to the C-section rooms. In order to do so, we are running the ductwork in the exterior of the building because our unit will be located on the 4th floor, and we exhausted all the possibilities to run it through the space, since the 5th and 6th floor are current functioning clinical spaces. So we are running it to the outside, and then we're going to run it. It's, as you may understand, these kind of buildings were not really designed to hold the kind of services and requirements that the hospitals currently have. So this new amount of air exchanges, it makes us take that decision to bring this new RTU to dedicate it to the C-section rooms. So initially, we proposed just to go from the rooftop where we're going to be located. We're going to be in a location where in this moment, we have a telephone booth that will be removed, and it will be replaced with this new RTU. So it's not going to be a new element to the building. It's going to be replacing an actual structure that is built there that we're going to remove, and it will be replaced with the unit. Then it will go out to the exterior facade, and we present it to the design review committee, and we present these two options. One, which was doing it specifically to the area where we need it, which will be the ceiling of the fourth floor, to run it into our space through the corridors, because it's impossible to run it through the rooms itself, because the type of equipment, the booms, the airframes, and everything that is inside the operating rooms requires 9 feet. And this building has only 10, 11 between slab and slab, so we have a really short amount to bring the AC unit. So we run it through the corridor, and then we get inside the spaces and distribute inside the space. So the enclosures that we are proposing, the option 2 was the one that it was approved. We're going to run those structures all the way down to the first floor, where we have a change of material. We have a brick, so it will end up against that brick. And these enclosures will be structurally solid. We have here the details of the structural design that we had for that. That's architectural. You can continue, and you will see that's the structural supports that will be attached at each floor. So the doorway will be inside, and also will carry the exterior and a finish for the enclosure, which will be face brick that will be as close as possible. Obviously, it's not going to be exactly the same, but we're trying to find the close as possible to the existing brick in the space. And also, one great conclusion that we get in the past design review committee is that we're going to repointing all that area. We have like an appendix where this is going to happen that is sticking out. So we're going to repoint all the grouts, not only on the new brick face, but the whole block. So it doesn't going to look like the grout. One is older and the other one is a new grout. So the whole block, the whole element will be repointed with new grout to look like the new enclosures. We can move to the pictures, please. So this is the rendering. The picture on the top is a Google Earth picture that shows. I will try to get close to, excuse me, so I can point it out. It's the white box on the left side. It will be replaced by the HU unit. Yeah. My colleague will come you out too. You can keep on. Yeah, and the unit, which is on top, is that white on the picture, Mike, on the picture above. That's a telephone booth that it will be removed, and the HU will be replacing that. And then we're going to run that into those two ductworks that we are representing it already as per the agreement we did with the design review committee. So that's the purpose of our time here with you guys to get approved this new design that obviously for the community will be a great advance, because you're talking that these C-section rooms and operating rooms are top of the edge with all the equipment inside, with up to the requirements that we have in this moment for this kind of rooms, which we don't have in this moment because these C-section rooms and operating rooms that the hospital currently have are dated. How much will be that, James? Like 23, 30 years ago, if not more, right? So it's really a great advance for the hospital, for the community. So.
And sorry, when you talk about the repointing, so can you illustrate, can you just,
It will be
Kind of-
just the appendix. You see that because, let me do it, Mike.
No, I mean, so the ductwork's gonna come down, this is what we're talking about, come down into these enclosures right here.
Basically, what we decide is that this whole element, right, it will be repointed with the same line.
okay, so that entire face of, side of the building, that, okay,
And we're gonna end it here, because if we end it on this face, you will notice how
Right.
this is an old ground and this is a new ground.
yes,
So we decide to do it from here, going to the new and going around. So it's this appendix that goes out of the building that it will be repointed completely. All the ground will be new, so it will match the ground, even though that we cannot completely match the brick face, but the ground will be perfectly matched because it will be new for the whole block.
right, all 6 floors, all the way up to, from the,
6 floors.
All
The
five.
first floor, it has that stone.
right,
That
okay,
is part of
yes,
the emergency room.
yes,
But it's not just the face of the building that juts out, it's also the 2 side walls as well.
Yeah, this side and the side behind this. So it's this whole block. The 3 faces of the whole block will be all completely new. Which makes sense. We completely agree.
so visually, it'll make it look more like that entire section of the building is new, as opposed to just the 2,
Exactly.
right, it'll just,
Just the ground.
It's not going to look like it's completely new because the brick will show the age already by the building, but it will look more consistent with the new look of
Yes.
the shafts.
yes.
And on that schematic, it looks like you could you, I guess is my question, could you see the white portion of the ductwork from the street?
No, not really. The ductwork, this is a quick rendering that we're doing, but the idea is that we're going to see the structural section showing how the ductwork goes there and it's completely covered by the enclosure.
It goes through the parapet wall.
It goes.
I
to the
see,
parapet
okay.
wall.
Yeah.
So it will be completely invisible. It will be like an extension of the parapet. So you won't
Great,
be able
okay.
to see. And actually, it's the 7th floor where we have these situations. So the angle, if we go down to the pictures, please.
I think John Pierce at the street wall from the street level.
Yeah, the street level that shows the.
Right, that's what I was looking, yeah, yes.
So this whole block will be repointed with new ground, and we're gonna go with that option, which is option number 2, which was done. And as you see, you won't be able to see the ductwork because it goes through. We have, per code, we have to have 42 inches parapet at that height. So those 42 inches are gonna allow us to go through the wall, through the parapet, and go down directly without being seen from above. So what you're gonna see is this.
Right, thank you. That's, makes sense.
If you have any other questions related to this.
Anyone have any questions?
Or any other options considered besides having them come out?
Yeah, we considered initially to use this wall over here, right? But unfortunately, the fact that this is an element that sticks out of the building, like a block that sticks out, the main structure is on that wall, and it runs all the way because this is a stair that goes all the floors of the building. So we have a really big element that don't allow us to go above. So that's why we have to do it on this wall, because the structural elements are smaller than the elements that we have in this wall. But that was our only option, because we cannot go directly to the C-section rooms. So we really explored all the options. We went inside the existing shafts to see if we could fit them in there, but there's no way to fit it inside. I personally walked all the shafts inside trying to.
Because where actually is the new rooms? Or it's not on this side, it's on the other side. Yes?
The new C-section.
Yes, or are they right there, or?
Can you show the plans? There is a plan there that shows, it should be advanced. No,
It's right within the new shift.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, it's right there. Okay, okay. That's fine, you don't have to. Josh, it's fine.
well, yeah, they gonna be located in the fourth floor exactly right here in this corner.
Okay.
So it's the shortest
They are-
way because in
Yes,
this place, there was many options that we considered. One option that we considered was to have a completely new HAPC unit that should be located in the second floor, right where you see it across from the city. We were trying to avoid create any bigger impact, right? So what we decided is to replace the 2 units that are inside the floor, and that will serve the common spaces, let's say the regular LDR rooms, the regular spaces. So the easiest way to make it and not create big HAPC units, it was using a dedicated unit only for the C-section rooms where you need the bigger charge. Because what happens with operating rooms is that you need 25 to 30 air exchanges per hour. So it's a lot of AC that you are blowing into these operating rooms. So that's why we split it, because it's the less impact solution that we couldn't find not to create, equipment in the roof. This is the C-section rooms. So basically what we're doing is we're coming from here, we're hitting this corridor, we're going to this because this is even 7.6 ceiling to bring the ductwork in, and then we are feeding the airframes. The airframes is what is above the operating table that is blowing the air at certain pace into the table. So it's distributed that way. It comes this way, it comes here. So it's the shortest route we couldn't find without creating a bigger impact by having a complete unit. We have 2 units that are being replaced, but they are inside our mechanical rooms in the roof. So you won't be able to see it, but they're being replaced to carry all the rest of the space. That unit that we're discussing tonight is only dedicated to these 2 operation rooms. And actually, this is a corridor where only the surgical people will be able to allow to get in. So that's the only area that is being served by this unit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Taft, could you please help us with something? Should we be considering, I think we're pretty clear on what's being proposed for the ventilation units. Should we be considering any other aspects of this project beyond the renovation and the aesthetics and the equipment that's being put in, like the renovation, the rest of the renovation itself? Or what is the scope of our consideration of this application?
Yeah, the impact there's no additional impact or additional use of the area. It used to be, correct me if I'm wrong, an ambulatory surgery area, which went to the second floor. And so, it's vacant space now, and it's just sort of a relocation and upgrade of systems. So I've determined that, there's no additional impact to the community, whether it be parking or any of those concerns that are listed in our code.
And not a change of use?
Right, no change of use.
Medical facility, it's all within,
Right,
yes.
right, yeah.
Okay.
There was some question about the mechanical equipment on the roof. What I saw when I went through there, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, the existing area has through-the-wall pack units for the air conditioning and the heating, and all of those are being removed. So those areas, I assume, will be bricked up. So that would, in my mind, be more uniform, I suppose. and then the systems will be on the roof, which is really, as far as I can see, no impact to the surrounding areas. And, you know, we had talked about a sound test upon completion of it. Some of the equipment that's being put up there, there used to be a T-Mobile site there, which is being removed. So that's taking that place.
And is that going to be relocated to somewhere else on the roof, or?
No,
is
that's, I think that, yeah.
It's being eliminated.
Yeah,
Okay.
through consolidation, their sites have been.
All right, just trying to predict what might be coming before us, yeah, okay.
Yeah, other than that, I mean, the only other comment I would add is for shaftways, as far as fire safety, I would pick a shaftway on the outside of a building instead of inside of a building. Safer and more easily controlled. That's the only other comment I can think of right now.
And in terms of environmental issues, this is not, this is just circulation of air. It's not,
Yeah.
there are no chemicals or anything of that nature that,
Like the gentleman mentioned, operating tables have 24 air changes per hour. If you were to build a new house here, a new single family, it's 3 air changes per hour. One of the things that has been realized with the pandemic, there's an ICC pandemic task force, and by far the most common research has been done about the ventilation and to move the air. So, and I was an interested party in that, and talking with some of the medical persons on those boards, they were at about 25 air changes per hour. They didn't think they could quite get the hospitals to agree to that, but if so, I think that's great. It's really to move the air for any sort of possible pandemics and stuff. So,
yes.
so I think that's important to note that, that whole big part is specifically for the proper air changes per hour for those operating rooms, which is extensive.
And will there be a sound impact? Will it be, will it be more noisy than it currently is?
Well, I'll let the professionals speak about that.
We have our sound consultant here from Ceramics.
Oh, great.
We're confident that it's going to meet the requirement from the town. Study, and we should meet it. I don't know if you want to add anything. But it is, we already done preliminary studies, it's going to be fine.
Yes.
Basically, what happened in that aspect is that we do a calculation based on the information we have of the units and how much decibels they can produce on paper. And based on those decibels that are produced by the units, we are okay according to ceramic. That should be followed up by your own consultant going there and doing the measurements. And I understand that the town, it has its own consultants that will do the measurements as well. So we are aware that we have to comply with the 45 minimum decibels. So we will do whatever is necessary to get to that point.
Okay, but so this is a post-approval, if we were to approve this, measurement that would take place, not on a pre-approval. In other words, it wouldn't be there wouldn't be testing done before we can render a decision on this application.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
For these new units, we're taking the criteria that was from the Cancer Center approval, and that's what he referred to as the 45 decibels. It would make sense to me if we went with that criteria and based the approval on meeting that criteria before any certificate of occupancy was released or something to that effect, I suppose.
Yes, okay. Any other questions for Mr. Taft?
Paul, you mentioned that there are openings in the wall for vents that are going to be closed up. Can you show that on the picture?
I'll leave that.
These grills, the P-TAC grills.
Yeah.
Currently individually, whether they be brick or they're going to have its own It's going to stay the same with the fence. Right. The louvers, Paul, if you notice on,
If you go to the picture of the,
they'll be sealed from the inside, but exteriorly, it'll look the same.
yeah, there you go.
See those vents, those grills?
Yeah.
Those grills will stay there.
Okay,
They'll be brick insulated from within.
right, okay.
That's right, because we have those windows in all the other floors, so.
Right.
We're gonna be the only floor that will remove it. So
Exactly.
we decide that we're gonna keep the grills, but we're gonna be doing the waterproofing behind the grills.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
So I guess the plan would be, just in terms of how it actually gets done, that the whole side of the building gets scaffolded with scaffolding and a cover from kind of top to bottom. So people will, the work on the side of the building will be done behind the cover of the
Yes,
scaffolding.
it will be
and-
completely scaffolded to be doing this job, because we're going to have to do initially demolition to get the structural items attached to the columns, which are behind the existing brick. And then we will proceed with repointing the whole thing. So it will be covered since the beginning, because there's demolition
Yes.
that is
And
required.
how long will this whole process take before, from kind of start to finish?
I will think that will be no more than 6 weeks, probably.
Can we hold you to that? So we're talking weeks. We're talking weeks, not months.
Yeah, it's nothing that it will be so disrupted for the area. Actually, we have the emergency department there, so we are the
Right.
more interested ones on finalizing this pretty quickly.
Yes. Okay.
At
Thank
6 weeks, can you come work on our houses?
We want to hire. We want to hire.
Won't be around after
contractors
those 6
for-
weeks.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand the process for procuring bricks that are similar and trying to achieve that? How does that work?
Basically, what happened is that typically the hospital and any other facility will have samples of the brick. So with the samples that we already have, we are searching with the different vendors of the brick face to see which of those will be the closest possible to the existing brick. And what they do is they see them in different circumstances. It could be with water, so they water them and see if the color change with the water. And, they do different tests to see how the brick face will match as much as possible the existing brick.
Is there anything about the existing brick that would make it more difficult to find a match? Or is
Not really. It's nothing really special about the brick that it will make us go further and beyond to find the match. We have, at this moment, several vendors who are offering, but we just want to get the specific one that, fulfill us before we can use it for the project.
And one last question from me. On the 2 columns, for the actual ductwork that's behind the brick, is it the same size for both columns, or the one to the left, which is a larger space, has a larger piece of ductwork?
Yes, the one on the right side, it coincides and is located purposely on that corner because it's the bigger length. So there we're going to have the supply ductwork, so the AC that we are blowing to the space, and the return as well, that is sucking the air out of the space, getting it to the unit, replacing it, and sending it. So there is 2 pieces of ductwork that goes into the bigger one, and the smaller ones are really exhaust fans that are coming from some of the spaces, the medical spaces. So it's just exhaust. Smaller ones.
And last one for me.
No problem.
From an architectural perspective, how do you think about the symmetry on that side of the building, though? With the 2 columns versus, and I don't want to add work, but if you had a 3rd column.
in terms of the look, you won't be able, it's not a major element in the facade, it's just like a little corner of the facade. In this case, we're seeing pictures of wintertime. So what you're seeing is the branches of the trees that are located in that corner. But during the summertime, you don't even gonna know what's going behind those because we have big trees that cover the area. So it's not really an area of concern that it will be fully exposed all the time. Maybe in wintertime, you will be seeing this. And those are the pictures that we choose to do this, to show it completely. But to be honest, if you pass by there today, it's a corner of the building, it's the back of the house. So it's not really a major impact in the visual.
You think it's the back of the house. I only see this side of the house. That's where I travel, so. Okay.
I mean, it's interesting, there have been so many modifications to the hospital over the years, so it's, you know, it's this amalgamation of a lot of different features from the original structure that it was. And, you know, each of options 1 and 2 are interesting in their own way, you know, as architectural features. You know, I could see someone driving by and say, oh, that's an interesting feature they added to the exterior of the building, but it actually has an important functional purpose.
A functional purpose.
But I'm sorry, Mike, did you have any other questions?
That's the end of mine.
Anyone else? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your
So I guess at this point, we should open up the public hearing. Is anyone here from the public who would like to speak to this application? Yes, sir. Please approach the podium and let us know your name.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Edward Powers. I live at 6 McKinley Street in Bronxville. I don't think it's a conflict, but I am a staff member at New York Presbyterian at the Cornell campus, okay? As I look at that, down below you have the so-called Magenstrasse, meaning that's a very busy area that you have between the old nursing school and the hospital. And my understanding is that you're going to have scaffolding and a lot of construction activity going on there. My concern would be is all the way down at the bottom, that's where the emergency room ends, all the way to the end of that building, okay, item number 1. And item number 2, you have really a tight passageway as it exists for ambulances to get in and out of there, okay? And, you know, the first thing that you encounter is the ambulance bay for the emergency treatment of patients, and then beyond that is where you have the ambulatory walk-in to the ER. My question is, has any thought been given to access for the emergency room, and will this have any impact on access to the emergency room? Thank you.
Thank you.
Regarding that aspect, there is a green area there, so the scaffolding will be located on that green area, and it won't have any conflict with either the pedestrians going into the emergency or the ambulances, because it's retrieved against the building. It's not going to be sticking out farther than that green area, so I don't think that there will be any impact on the pedestrians going in or the ambulances, if that answers your question, sir.
I mean, I guess related question, will there be any reduction in the space to the emergency room area at that end of the building during the time that this work is being done?
No, this is a side window, so it's not really any entrance or any...
Not a treatment room or anything of that nature? Okay, yeah.
It's just windows from there that will be, you know, blocked for the time being while the scaffolding is there, but it's not that there is any entrance or any element that bring people in that corner. They gotta walk further in. You see where the canopy is located?
Yes.
That's the entrance. That's
right.
Where the entrance is located, so it's further in.
Right.
the space. So there's no conflict with any of the traffic going into the emergency room
Yes.
during the process.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who would like to speak to this application? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing for this and discuss with the board. Board members, what do you all think? And if I have one question for the board, which is, the Design Review Committee recommended option number 2, and I would like to hear from the members of the board whether they have a strong view one way or the other as to options 1 versus 2.
I have preference for 2.
2 also?
Definitely.
2?
I was indifferent between the two, but I'll defer to our experts on design reviews, so.
Mike?
I appreciate that option 2 has some more symmetry than 1, where it seems like it just.
You really want option 3, don't you? You want to see that. I know it's what you really want. but
I'm entertaining in my mind.
That's more than they bargained for.
Exactly, that's why I have it, those are your words, not mine. But I like the symmetry in 2 over 1, so.
Yes, okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
My only comment would be, I recognize that with new safety standards and some of these older buildings, we are trying to upgrade their capabilities. And so this seems, I think they've gone through a lot of thought in trying to solve the problem in a variety of ways. And this seems the most unobtrusive and kind of straightforward way to go about it, so I appreciate that.
And I think we all appreciate their continuing to invest in the facility. I think that's something we're all a big fan of. So.
Yes. One question I had, and maybe from reading the Design Review Committee minutes, it looks like there is, that they recommended approval based on option 2, but they recommended that before approval is granted, an updated drawing must be submitted showing where the mortar will be struck from the brick and a new mortar installed. So is that earlier rendering that was on the screen, is that the submitted in response to the DRC comment?
Obviously, there is only a week between the design review committee and this meeting. But our set of drawings, which will be sent to both, once it's done, we will have detailed plans that we show it at the end. But obviously, it will be the appendix or the element that sticks out as I show it to you. That is on the process because that was an addition that we started working on it on last week, Thursday. So we will have to add that to our set of drawings, and we are on that.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I guess the only question is, have we heard enough and do we know enough based on the DRC review to approve this tonight with the understanding that the applicant will be submitting the more detailed drawings to the DRC and to the building department? Or do people feel that it's of such a nature that we need to wait until the DRC has had a chance to review the updated drawings? I personally think that I've heard enough to feel that I could be comfortable approving it because I've seen the renderings and the requirement of the DRC to me is more of a ministerial follow-up point and not a substantive point, but I welcome any views of the other board members on that.
No, I agree with you. And I think, given the cooperation that the hospital and their professionals have shown, I think if there are any discussions that take place between the DRC members and the hospital, I think they'd probably be done constructively, so it doesn't, it doesn't sound like there's much doubt about where the mortar will be replaced.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case, would someone like to make a motion with respect to this application?
I move we approve the application with respect to option 2.
Second?
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, option 2 it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next application we have is 205 White Plains Road, and this is a continuation of a discussion that started at our April meeting. So thank you very much for returning tonight. I was actually, just to clarify, I was not at that meeting, but I've watched the video, so I feel like I was at the meeting. So I'm obviously fully up to speed on the application and all of the related issues. And we've got 5 voting members here tonight, so we're in a position to hopefully move things forward in some way tonight. Adamo, one other thing in the way of background. There actually has been quite a bit of progress with respect to this application since the last meeting. As you may recall, at that meeting, we were not yet in possession of a landscape plan, which was submitted and reviewed by the Design Review Committee at their meeting last week. In addition, the Design Review Committee did a detailed review of the plans as they were originally submitted, and both the landscape plan and the original plans for the house were actually revised, probably with the applicant's architect working nonstop over the weekend. And those are now, I believe you will now be presenting those further revised plans to us tonight. Is that correct?
Exactly.
With what? Okay.
That's
And then just to tie a few things up, there were also a few other points that we left at the end of last meeting, but I think in the course of your presentation and the question and answer tonight, hopefully we'll be able to address all of those other issues that were left open.
totally. Yeah.
So please,
Yeah,
go
okay.
right ahead.
I was going to kind of just run through the additional items that we did. But so again, Adamo Majorana from Community Designs and Engineering. Again, we are back before you today for seeking approval for the new residence at 205 White Plains Road. Yes, as you said, so hopefully the site visit from a couple weeks ago helped the board really see, in full detail the existing aesthetics and, structural conditions of the home. Obviously, from the last meeting, as you said, we submitted a complete landscape plan that was done by Bob Tramontano, the landscape architect. From the comments of last week's design review committee, he did do some minor updates to that landscape plan. And on top of that, we submitted, yes, a logistics demolition sort of write-up to better explain how the demo would be carried out. That sort of piggybacks on the demo plan. We did update actually our stormwater calculations and stormwater drawings to capture the runoff of a 100-year storm event, which is 8.6 inches of rainfall. This is, this sort of condition was compliant with the Tuckahoe requirements of stormwater control. So it'll, basically we're sort of going above and beyond with the stormwater for, I guess, Bronxville requirements, but we have to do that anyway for Tuckahoe, again, because the property lands in Tuckahoe and Bronxville. Additionally, yes, so there was some comments to the design review committee. We did try to do most of those comments over the, if you want to go to the elevations. So yeah, some of the comments were updated with the, from the design review committee that we added. I don't want to, really go through all of those little, some aesthetic updates with, random things. There is some additional sections that we have to work on. They take a little bit more time. There was also, what was there, the complete environmental assessment reports of the existing home that we submitted with that additional demolition package.
So
And
this is the asbestos and the pest control?
exactly,
Right,
yeah.
okay.
That was part of the, package submission of the additional items that we didn't have at that first meeting. And yeah, other than that, basically sums up, the additional stuff of where we are sort of at today.
Yes, okay. And so one of the items I think that was open was the, which I think you responded to in writing, was the condition of the property and the difficulty in renovating the existing house. And I think that was addressed in your memorandum, with a memorandum from your lawyer. And just to say thank you again for allowing the boards to actually have a site visit at the property, because I think we all have a much better understanding of the current condition of the property. So, so we appreciate that. Just in terms of process, so this is the first, I think for us, this is, I know it was, I think, sent to the building department on Monday. Obviously, the design review committee doesn't meet again until
Next month.
the first Wednesday in June. So that's the next opportunity that they will have a chance as a board to consider, the entire package and application. And obviously, they're mainly focusing on the design and the landscaping. But I guess I had a question, and I don't know who the best person to address this to. On the revised plans, it looks like the back of the house actually encroaches beyond the Bronxville setback. And I'm just trying to understand whether there needs to be a variance with respect to that portion of the house, even though it's in the Tuckahoe part of the property. And I don't know, maybe Mr. Taft, can you address that?
Yeah, I felt when reviewing that the fact that it's not in our jurisdiction, that it wouldn't apply. It's in Tuckahoe, and it complies with their requirements.
It's just kind of a strange situation because
It is.
of the way the property is. Because if you took that approach literally, then that the boundary of the jurisdiction of the codes ends at the border of the two villages, then it doesn't comply with either village's setbacks as it's designed, and for that matter, as it's currently sitting on the property. But it's pre-existing non-conforming right now, and this is a new. So I think we have to just, like, what is our approach to this kind of unusual issue? Because I think it should either be you need to comply with Bronxville for the entire house, or you comply with the codes for each of the villages, in which case this wouldn't work at all.
Yeah.
And I don't think the latter is the outcome that any of us kind of had been envisioning, so.
I believe you as a board could refer it to zoning for a variance, if you felt that was a condition. It was my determination as the zoning enforcement officer, but then, if you felt that it would be required, I mean, we may want to check with council on that, but that may be something, that you would want to take a closer look at. It is a peculiar situation, and if I can't see that from here, but...
And Paul, what's the magnitude of noncompliance? I just don't know if we're talking about an inch or a foot or...
It's not, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a lot.
Just that little long rectangle, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. So,
This, the rear yard,
so basically it's.
I see it. Thanks.
25 feet.
This very small area right there, but, I mean, if you look at the overall context, it does comply everything with Tuckahoe zoning, and so that green line technically is the Tuckahoe zoning setback, and it's massively further than what Bronxville is. So it's
Yes.
not, anywhere
Oh, so it's that blue line, okay.
all the way,
I see.
to the, say, so-called Tuckahoe setback, we're just, a very small percent, probably, maybe that's 4 feet or so, 5 feet,
Yeah.
that's the
Yes.
well within Tuckahoe.
It's not a lot, but I'm just cognizant of staying within our authority as a planning board, and also from the applicant's perspective, feeling that they're within the law and regulations, and they're not, that what they're proposing to do can't be legally challenged because they've gone outside of the setback without getting a variance, and that someone, I wouldn't want someone to come along later and say, you have to, knock down the back of the house and pull it back to, so I'm just mindful of those 2 points. One is from the village's perspective and the planning board's perspective, and one is from the applicant's perspective. So I don't know what the best way to approach that would be. Is that something we should consult with council about, or is that something we should talk to the zoning board about to see if they care about this, or do they consider this to be in their jurisdiction? And because if they don't consider this to be within Bronxville, and therefore they, disclaim jurisdiction over it, then it's not a Bronxville zoning issue at that point. Then it's just a planning board issue and a site plan approval issue.
Do we have authority to make these kinds of changes for something that goes outside the blue dots here, or do we not? I don't know.
Well, that's the issue, because, I'd like to think we do, but I want to also stay in my lane, so.
It seems to me a discussion with council would be the good first step.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do members of the board have any other questions for the applicant or the architect, or?
Are we going to review in more detail the landscape plan?
Yeah, Adamo,
do that?
Can you talk more about the landscape plan, please?
So, basically overall, I'm not the landscape architect, but it was really done to sort of soften the whole, corner lot setup so that, the house is sort of visibly blocked as much. You could maybe go to the elevations, that sort of the elevations sort of show somewhat to scale how the landscaping plan is demonstrated on so-called, each side of the, residence, but, so there's existing, there's proposed landscaping along White Plains Road to, again, soften that appearance. We're going to add 4 new trees, 2 on White Plains Road side and 2 on Hobart. There's all, obviously flowering bushes, landscaping along the foundation of the home. I think the landscape plan is in the, actual package instead of the plans, but, and,
I think it's
what else?
the first one.
What's that?
Yeah,
No, that's our site plan, the stormwater and whatnot. It's, do you want,
Yeah, because I did see something with arborvitae. Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, so this was the original one. Actually, just recently, they updated the landscaping on the left-hand side to add more, like a double row. That was part of the design review committee, a double row of some more evergreens, and then the hydrangeas and flowering bushes that sort of don't stay green all year long. But yeah, so that's that sort of screening along White Plains Road, the trees, and then your typical sort of all of the planting in the front and sides of the home.
So this is the original,
That is the original one, yeah. Actually, just today, he sent me the updated one
Oh, okay.
from, so I didn't even bother sending it, I thought it was too late anyway. But it's very similar, literally just has additional landscaping along the left-hand side and shows that these trees have to be at least, a 10-foot height, well, really 8 foot was the minimum that design review wanted those trees to be planted at.
and some substitution of evergreens for his hydrangeas.
On the left side, well, no, he had basically like a double layer, so there's, evergreens along the house wall, and then in front of that, some more hydrangeas and flowering bushes in front of it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's sort of a, more of a, feeling of not just, some foundation plants. It's a big layer of landscaping.
Right.
So it looks like the home was not just, the landscaping was an afterthought, and hey, let's just throw some bushes around the house sort of deal.
Adamo, I noticed when I was looking down Hobart today that the houses beyond 205 White Plains Road all seem to kind of line up. They all seem to be set back from the curb at the same distance. And I couldn't tell from these plans whether this house would be set back further back or, where it would be in relation to the other houses on Hobart. It looks like, I'm thinking it's going to be a little further back in the lot. Is that correct? Because the other houses on Hobart are more modestly sized.
If we look at with respect to the existing home, basically it's, there's a front porch and we're almost basically in line with the existing dwelling wall, but further back than the front porch. So I mean, basically we're at 30 feet with the furthest it goes to the front yard. I don't know what those homes are. When you look at the first picture, it's hard to tell, but, yeah, so it's probably, when you look at the aerial view on the first page, probably it's a little bit further back. I mean, it is a much bigger lot, an oversized lot, and there's a lot of space from our home to the next home, but I guess the existing home is probably, doesn't seem as far back because the front porch, and then ours obviously has to be compliant, but, so we, really couldn't go any more forward because we're at that 30-foot point, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, any other comments, questions? So, Mr. Taft, are there any other, I had a couple of questions on the demolition plan and there were two specific requirements in the site plan approval section. One is for a demolition management plan, and one is for what's called a site restoration plan. And I've been through the demolition management plan, and I just wanted to see if that was satisfactory to you, or if you had any further comments on it. And then I wanted to figure out what is the concept of a site restoration plan? Because isn't the whole point, you're not demolishing the house to create a green field. This is what we're here for, right?
Exactly.
So the site restoration plan is basically the construction plan for the new structure and related landscaping. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. They wouldn't demo and then let's let the property sit for a year and then start the home. The demolition would start, and then right after the demolition is done, the house foundation would start to be dug out, for the new residents, and start your foundation work, and then your framing and so on.
Yes.
So.
And related to the demolition, when we were on the tour, I think Mr. Holcomb made the comment that when the house on 225 White Plains Road was demolished, it was like a two-step process where the contents of the house were all disposed of, basically taken out, and there was nothing left but the structure itself, and it wasn't until all the contents were removed that then the final demolition took place. So it wasn't clear to me from the document that you submitted whether that same process would take place.
Maybe.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Nice to see you all again. Let me attempt to try to reduce things to the lowest common denominator for you with respect to the demolition, if the application is granted. These are generally done in order to minimize the disruption to the neighbors and to the community. So from a simplified version, essentially 2 containers are placed side by side adjacent to the house. The house is dropped on itself. The material is essentially compressed in the basement of the existing house, within the existing foundation. It's then removed by excavator, placed in one of the 2 dumpsters. Those are hauled off, and another dumpster is returned to the original spot. This is estimated to be based on the experience at 225, as well as other situations, about a 5-day process. So in other words, in roughly 5 days, the house and all remnants of the house are gone. It then takes roughly 3 days for all of the concrete from the existing foundation walls and foundation to be removed. And then, to answer the question for you with respect to remediation or rehabilitation, whatever the term you all used was, we'll go straight into digging the new foundation or moving the foundation. So this isn't a situation where we'll have a fence around it forever and you'll have grass growing on it and flowers. It's literally, it's just a continuous process. But to be clear, I can't control concrete. It could take 10 days. There's some timing issues, but the intent is to minimize the disruption to the neighborhood. The 225 house was somewhat different in that municipality granted me a demolition permit for parts of the interior of the house. So over a period of time while we were waiting for the approvals to build the houses, we were able to take the contents of the house out. And the neighboring houses there were a lot closer to the foundation and to the structure. So we thought it was appropriate in that case. So
what was done at 225 is not typical?
Well, I think it just depends on the material in the house, to be honest with you. It depends on the proximity of the neighbors, how tight things are. So at a minimum, everything from the walls out will be gone. All metal. I don't know if the house is sheetrock. I don't know if it's all plaster. I just don't know the composition because the village appropriately didn't choose to issue me a building permit for the demolition because we didn't have a permit in place for the new construction. So I understand and respect the reason why I couldn't get it in this case. So I don't really know what I'm dealing with till we start to open it up, and once you all give me the permission, I can define that for you. But in terms of minimal disruption to the neighbors, dropping the house as it is into the basement is done in 5 days. If we start with a demolition relative to carting out wall material, it can be done, but that could add an extra 30 days to it. Mm-hmm. So we want to be good neighbors, and as Augie Bush said years ago, making friends is our business, so we're not here to agitate anybody unnecessarily. So whatever is the fastest and most expeditious way to get it done, with Paul's oversight, is what we'll do.
So when you say dropping the house or compressing the house onto itself, how is that done with explosives? Or?
No, sir. Unfortunately not. There won't be any 4th of July there. It's one excavator that literally just compresses the house onto itself. There's a backup excavator on site. When all the demo's finished, the primary excavator is gone, and then the cleanup is done with the secondary excavator by cleaning up the remnants, if you will. If you look at the 225 site, mm-hmm. it's clean. We don't, we're not running a third world country here. It's a super clean site.
So based on what you're saying, in fact, this demolition will occur as a process a lot faster than the 225 process. If it were to...
About a year faster. Yes, sir.
Like the whole, if this house were to be demolished, it would
the windows would be removed, all metal would be removed, anything on the interior of the walls would be removed, and then the house is dropped, simplistically.
Yes, okay. All right. Is everyone clear with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. You know, unless anyone has any further questions or comments, at this point, I would like to open up the public hearing. So are any members of the public here who would like to speak to this application? Yes, sir.
Good evening, David Fuller, 4 Gifford Street, and that's in Tuckahoe, 2 blocks north of Hobart, as you probably all know. I just wanted to inquire about what might be done with this house based on experience on the house that was demolished by the same applicant. And there are a couple things that might be helpful, and one is that after the demolition of the house that was on 225 White Plains Road, there was, in the dumpsters and all, there was an awfully long time. I don't know if it was a year, but many months. I'd have to look at the calendar, when there was just that big open space that was really unsightly. And I just wondered if there was some way to ensure that once they put the got the house demolished and had the dumpsters there, that they didn't have a very long interval between when they did that and when they started building the house, the new house. This is just kind of experience that we had, thought I might pass it along. The other is that there were some very nice trees, and I like to think that's relevant, but very nice trees on the property that was demolished. 2 really fine trees. I remember when they came by, I went out and asked, you know, what are you going to do with the trees? And they said, well, we just have to do some trimming for dead wood and all. Well, they chopped down both trees. And so I don't know, I'm trying to picture, I've lived here a long time, so I don't know if there are any large, nice trees on the property on Hobart. But, again, with the planning board as to how much that weight you put on that, but for me, it would be very interesting to see if they could preserve the trees rather than to chop them down. That's all. But I guess the only other comment I have is that of course, we're waiting to see how it's going to turn out on Gifford, where they've already started building. But how much weight is given to how this would affect the overall property when you're coming up and down White Plains Road? I mean, that's part of the message that they give of the villages. And so I wonder if any attention has been paid to how that house going down and also the one that's already gone down and the one they're trying to do down with the historic house, as to what effect that might have in general, if that's something that the planning board should take into consideration. Because when you come, either whether you're going north or south on Route 22 White Plains Road, in times past it's been a very nice area when you go through, and it gives a good view of Tuckahoe and Bronxville. But whatever they do, I just would hope that they would try to keep the same kind of a footprint that's desirable and not something that will regret their having done.
Thank you very much. Actually, I think I can speak to all of those things. With respect to the trees, I don't think there are many attractive species that remain on the property. It's mostly, back in the corner where there's a garage, there are some kind of straggly trees back there. That's something that, certainly the Design Review Committee in their review would have been very focused on, and unfortunately, I don't think there's much worth preserving. With respect to your first point, regarding the demolition, I think we heard from Mr. Holcomb that the demolition, theoretically, this demolition would happen a lot faster. And I would also add that in the Bronxville Code, no demolition work can take place unless and until construction drawings have been submitted and a building permit's been issued for the actual construction of the house. So the whole process would happen, once the demolition occurred, and I think the applicant has made this point, you'd go from the demolition phase directly into the construction phase very quickly. So you wouldn't have this lengthy hiatus where there was just this waiting period where this unsightly, hole in the ground was there. And as for your last point about the White Plains Road corridor there being the entry point to Bronxville, I think similarly, the Design Review Committee spent a great deal of time in their meeting last week talking to the applicant about their concerns, which were exactly the same as yours. And some of the commentary and comments that they gave on the application, the design as well as the landscaping were made to address that exact point.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate the questions and the concerns and want you to know that they're being considered and addressed by both of the boards in Bronxville that are looking at this. Other questions, comments? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, Dr. Powers, I apologize, yes.
Public comment.
You get to do double duty
Chair.
tonight.
My name is Dr. Edward Powers. I'm at 6 McKinley Street. And with your permission, may I submit some documents to the board?
Yes, please.
We're good at sharing.
Yes, this looks familiar. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So a group of us for about a year and a half have been working on this document, which is a historic map of the corridor that involves Tuckahoe, Bronxville, and also with the Eastchester. And the group is combined of people from all those municipalities, from Eastchester, Bronxville, Tuckahoe. And if you look, it shows the Fulling House that's on there. And if I may, if you go to the back, there's a narrative that we put together. And it states the Fulling House was built in the colonial revival style between 1897 and 1910 on lots laid out for Henry Fulling in his 1897 plan for the development of Gifford Park, named for Judge Silas Gifford. The house was sold by the Fulling family to Concordia College in 1939, when the college first admitted women. Called Restmeyer Hall, it was used as a women's dormitory and facility residence until its sale by the college in 2021. Okay? I guess I'm a voice in the wilderness, and I speak against the demolition of the Fulling House and for the restoration. And I think this is the third planning board that I've attended, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak then and now. And if you look on the corner of McKinley, where I live in 22, there are two houses there that were dormitories, and especially the one on the corner, the daughter of the former president of Concordia lives there, V.G. George, and the husband, his father was a dermatologist who worked in Bronxville for 55 years. They restored that house, and I was in it before the restoration. They did a beautiful job with the restoration of that house. And the house right next to it is the same thing, fully restored. It's interesting, Mr. Chair, the point you raised about setbacks and boundary lines. My property is the property that was outlined with the laser pointer that covers a big section of the backyard all the way down to where the present garage is, okay? So will I be impacted by this? Absolutely. And I want to finish up by saying that this area is a historic area, okay? The house that I'm in goes back to 1895. And my guess is, although I have not been able to document this, is that when McKinley was shot in 1901, that street that I'm on was named McKinley in his honor. And it's interesting, the street where this 205 is on Hobart, that was McKinley's vice president in his first term. So you're talking about an area that really carries a lot of history in terms of not only Bronxville, Tuckahoe, but in terms of national history. I'll finish up by saying it must be about 8 years ago, a petition was made, I think I'm at 6, by number 8, McKinley, to extend the side of that house all the way over, almost to my driveway. And that application was denied, and it was denied on the grounds of that setbacks, as you pointed out, are very important. And Gifford Park really was designed with setbacks in mind. So I'm presenting that for your consideration. Most of the houses, the front face 22 except for one, and that's the kind of new modern style house that was put on the corner there of opposite the Fulling House on Hobart and 22. And unfortunately, and I think not for the better, this is going to change the character of it. And I brought up the setback discussion because at that time, the Tuckahoe deferred to Bronxville for their decision on the setback. And I'm in what you call one of those strange houses, okay, where the dividing line actually goes up the street on that side of the McKinley, and it impacts my house as well as other houses. I want to thank you for the opportunity to give this testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there other members of the public who would like to speak? Mr. Lefkowitz, would you like to say something?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Please, by all means.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Lee Lefkowitz from Zarin and Steinmetz. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I hope you all had a chance to read my memo, which I submitted. The main reason I wanted to get up is just in case your board had any questions for me in response to that memo, I'm happy to answer them and to briefly respond to comments made about the property and the historic nature of it. As I indicated in my memo, when properties are designated historic or restricted in their use, typically an applicant, a landowner, would be provided some due process and formal procedure for designating them as such. I mentioned during the last meeting and in my memo that most municipalities do that by the National Register of Historic Places so that historic properties are known. It's not typically done that private neighbors or other members of the public indicate their belief that a property is historic and then a property is restricted for a landowner. That's not, due process rights for property owners. So that's the only thing I wanted to respond to, as well as to make myself available for any questions your board may have.
Thank you very much.
As for the setbacks, I'll just note, it appears to be a minimal variance that would be needed if one's needed at all. And that, given that portion of the property is in Tuckahoe and it's compliant with Tuckahoe setbacks, I think it's reasonable and rational that your building inspector made that determination. But if needed, we can, it's a minimal variance, so it's not a problem if that is the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think on that point, we will consult with our zoning board and our council and get back to you promptly because if it was determined that it affects everyone's process. It could affect the drawings potentially. It could affect your need to get relief from another, board, which affects your timing. So we're trying to be mindful of that.
Thank you.
So we'll let you know as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn the public hearing, and turn to a discussion of this with our board, let me preface that by saying I think there are a couple of things. I think we've made good progress since last month's meeting in a number of areas, understanding more about the property, the legal issues, the historic issues, the getting more details on the plan, doing additional revisions of both the landscaping and the plan for the home. I don't think we're in a position tonight to make a decision on this. Number one, we have the issue that we just discussed with respect to this one encroachment, which may or may not require a variance or a revision to the plans alternatively. And number two, I think we need to give our design review committee, who we rely on very heavily for design and aesthetic aspects, time to review the revised drawings and landscape plan, and then meet as a board the first week in June. Having said that, this is the second meeting that you've been before us, and I think we would all like to be in a position to wrap this up, as soon as possible. So I welcome the views of the other board members on that approach.
I think that's a good approach, because we do need to deal with the possible need for a variance or not. And the design review committee didn't give us a recommendation because they wanted to see the response to many of the comments. I mean, I was at that meeting, and I see that many of the changes were adopted, and I think that's great.
I would just echo that I think you've made tremendous progress since the last meeting, and I think we would look forward to, taking steps at the next meeting.
Yeah. Mr. Ching?
Do we want to have comments on the existing plans now? Is that the right venue?
Yes, yeah, because if there are things that we as any of us think need to be reflected in those plans, that they need to know about those things, and not have that cause another delay next month.
I am very focused on understanding how this new site plan integrates and preserves the existing character of the neighborhood. And what I was focused on was understanding how its appearance and structure looks similar or conforms with the style of homes along 22. And so I visited every home that sits on a corner, and I think observations I had were that this is one of the few homes that this will be the only home that has a attached 3-car garage. Not that that is right or wrong, but I think it's unique in that aspect. Most are either 2-car garages that face 22 or none. I think the other aspect is that with regards to the landscape plan, all these corner houses that have the side facing 22 have very mature or tall plantings, at least 10 feet, if not higher in height, that cover the visibility of the house. I think that these are just two different aspects that I think are very unique, and not that everything needs to conform, but is a design element that I think is repeated throughout Highway 22 and adds character to kind of that drive.
Makes it difficult to walk on the sidewalk, though, in that area.
It's a unique area too, just because sort of Concordia breaks it up, so you have this is probably one of the biggest lots in that area, because they're all smaller homes, and you get some, somewhat bigger homes. Across the street is a very small ranch, and then they have, like you said, that mature landscaping. We did, when I was walking the site with the landscape architect, one of the things was, not to really, I guess it's not so pleasing to just see like a evergreen, straight sort of shot of 10-foot high, okay, it's just, green sort of planting there. So we sort of specifically said, hey, let's, make these, up the street has somewhat similar boxwoods, at a height that, gives you some blockage from White Plains Road. Also there's some taller ones in the beginning at the corner of and then smaller, obviously, at Hobart because of visibility, vehicular access onto White Plains Road. Sort of break that up and not be just a straight, tall shrub bush that sometimes is, we can easily make, plant taller shrubs, but that really did come up in the, site visit, and not to sort of do that and put some trees and some different shrubs and not just a straight line of sort of evergreens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, particularly given the house immediately to the north of it, which faces White Plains Road. I don't know if is that your house, Dr. Powers, or you're the next house on McKinley? The Tudor, the Tudor, that.
North of it, right.
So, but then to have,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
You're not the Tudor house on the corner of McKinley and White Plains Road, are you? You're the next house?
I'm the one right next to it.
Next to that one.
But I have the privilege of paying taxes to Bronxville, Tuckahoe, and Eastchester, all right? And I have actually 5 lots there, okay? And I have a pretty big piece of property, okay? And I know that when I make the checks out. But the piece of property that I'm on, and as long as I have the microphone, you, Mr. Chair, you weren't here for the last session, but I pointed out that in the 1930s, when they were developing that property, they found a cannonball there. And actually, the house was owned by Elizabeth Betts, and her grandfather, I think O'Shaughnessy, right, or Shaughnessy, went on to become the mayor of Tuckahoe. But that cannonball was a British cannonball, okay? So you're talking about in context, a historic area, okay? And she gave it as a gift to the Westchester Historical Society, okay? That's gonna, unfortunately, this house is going to change the character of that neighborhood from what it is today. So yes, I'm the second house down with the high hedges in front of it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the reason I asked was because given, I think it might, if you were to just screen the entire White Plains Road side along the road there, as you're driving south on White Plains Road, I think that might actually be very, very visually disorienting, given the fact that the house immediately to the north of it actually faces White Plains Road.
Right. Yeah.
And now you have one sideways with screening. And I think, what I think the DRC and the applicant were going for was something that provided some screening, but not complete screening. I mean, your point about the 3-car garage is clearly a valid one, because I think, I mean, I'm on Woodland, at the top of Woodland, we have a side-facing house on White Plains Road, and that has, I think, a 2-car garage, but they have very heavy screening, a fence and euonymus bushes,
Right,
like
51 and 52
yes.
both face Woodland.
Yes.
And have a 2-car garage that faces White Plains Road.
Yes, yes.
And mature plantings. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I just,
Understand.
Visually, I don't know that, like, complete screening would be the best solution, in that spot, but, that's why we have the design review committee looking at this very carefully, so, but those are all good points, though. Okay, Mr. Goldman, any further thoughts?
Nope.
No. Ms. Marshall, any other thoughts? Okay, well, in that case, unless there are any other comments, what I would propose that we do is we have, from our side, one deliverable, which is figuring out what we need to do about that slight encroachment onto the the Bronxville setback on the Tuckahoe side of the line.
Right.
And then, well, actually, two, we also have, our design review committee needs to review the revised drawings and plans. In both of these cases, we will endeavor to get back to you with comments as soon as possible, so that at the next set of meetings, which for us would be the second Wednesday in June, and for the DRC would be the first Wednesday in June, all issues, there shouldn't be any open issues, basically. They should all, with respect to the design, the landscaping, the legal, everything should be, the position should be clear and everything should be resolved. And that we as a board, the DRC, it would be in a position to make a recommendation, and that we as a board should be in a position to make a decision. So unless anyone has any further thoughts, we will proceed on that basis.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and that was our last agenda item. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Motion made, a second? Eileen, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.